Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Future of AI panel discussion. We're privileged to have with us three esteemed panelists today: Mary Clark, the Chief Marketing Officer of Brivo; Pauline Norstrom, the CEO of Anekanta Consulting; and Vidya Panchanathan, a good governance implementer at Management Support Services. Our discussion will explore the evolving landscape of AI, especially in the context of public safety and security. The landscape of AI is vast, dynamic, and evolving. It promises unprecedented advancements, efficiencies, and possibilities in nearly every sector that we encounter. Yet, with this potential comes complexity, challenges, and ethical dilemmas, especially in sectors as crucial as public safety and security. Our aim today is not just to dissect the landscape, but to navigate its intricacies. Through this panel, we aspire to analyse the transformation of that AI is ushering in, examine best practices in harnessing its power responsibly, and most importantly, enlighten and inform our audience about the path ahead. In this journey of exploration, we're privileged to have the voices that are not just authoritative, but also have a deep hands-on understanding of the subject. Together, we'll embark on this insightful journey into the future of AI, its impact, and the roadmaps that we ought to consider. So thank you, everybody, for joining me. To start, I just wanted to go around the room and make sure that everyone had adequate time to introduce themselves. So Mary, if we could start with you.
Sure, hi. Forgive me for the sound. I'm not, the allergies of this season are challenging for me. Mary Clark, I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Brivo. I have been with Brivo since it'll be 2 years, I guess, in December. I have a long background in technology and in running product and marketing in that area. Brivo is a cloud-based access control company in around 42 million square meters around the world in 63 countries. And this is very much a top of mind topic for us. So I'm delighted to be here. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thanks, Mary. And Pauline, we come to you.
Yes, certainly. Well, my background is 20 years plus in the security industry. I'm a former chief operating officer of a large technology group, which was focused on video and analytics tech, former chair of the BSIA, and now an honorary member. And I've just been appointed chair of the AI and biometrics special interest group. And for my day job, I am the founder and CEO of Anekanta Consulting and Anekanta AI. And those companies are focused on research, AI risk and impact.
Perfect, thank you. And last but not least, Vidya.
My name is Vidya Panchanathan, and my background is computer science, first degree, second degree. In my younger days, in the 80s, it was called knowledge-based systems and expert systems. That was my second degree from Heriot-Watt University, Edinburgh. And since then, I've been working as software engineer, technical support, all those different types of activities within an IT organization, and moved around, worked for a number of software houses. And then finally, in 1999, July, I set up my own little limited company called the Hands-On Project Management Company Limited. And then moved more into standards. Doing everything properly is my passion. And a force for good, if I can put it that way. So I've been working with standards, national and international, since that time. And here we are in the new era of AI. More standards, please.
Well, thank you all for joining us. You all bring a wealth of knowledge and expertise to this panel and to the subject of AI. So first of all, I wanted to start by analysing the current landscape of AI. So Mary, I'm going to come to you again first. What is your perspective of the sudden influx of AI?
Yeah, the challenge that right now I think everyone has is everyone's just still scrambling. I think if you're a technology company and see the opportunity to leverage AI, generative AI in particular right now, I think everyone's still trying to figure it out. There is an enormous clashing here that I think we'll get into in this conversation about, what is the ethical means of utilizing it? Where's the privacy fallout? But yet how much could be optimized and made more efficient through potentially the leveraging of AI. And, we're still very much, large language model, AI, generative AI is still where we are. I think right now, I'm personally very interested in the predictive nature of AI that we can get to, and what's the next best action kind of thing. Very traditional actions. In fact, when you think about some of the work that's been done over the years in different sort of rules-based models and in different types of technology. But now when you have something that is generative and you have this opportunity to create I think it's creating a lot of challenge. I know personally in our organization, we're looking to figure out, we have so much data that we could leverage for the benefit, in a metadata method for so many of our potential clients. And from an administrative point of view, and you're managing access and you're managing the method of ensuring security, we have a great deal there that I think can be leveraged in a different way. So we're looking at it from the point of view of how can we take this massive amount of events that we have and figure out what's the opportunity that we have to make it more easy for someone that's trying to implement security, that's trying to constantly optimize it, but also at the same time, in today's very challenging commercial real estate environment, how can you take that same data and make it so that access is perhaps a positive thing? It's not about keeping you out, it's about welcoming you in. So it's not only just to reinforce the security that we have today, but it's also about really challenging and figuring out, is there a way to make this a better experience for a journey throughout a built structure. And so but it's a lot of scrambling right now because it's now so freely available. I do think every industry is challenged with this, as you said in your opening. I mean, I just don't think everyone's got the answer, and the ethics of it are going to be a challenge. We have to constantly keep that in the top of our mind. There's just no question. Excuse me.
Definitely.
I'm going to go back on mute again.
Definitely, and I think it's not just professional industries either. It's how we utilize it in our personal life. Whether it's for art, whether it's ChatGPT, all of these different systems are starting to use AI, and everybody from the public and professionally is starting to utilize it. So I think to see how far we have to go forward, it's going to be the people that understand it and understand its correct usage, and can like I said, utilize it in the best way. And Pauline, as an advocate for the ethical use of AI, how has the industry and wider society received this adoption so far?
Well, I think depending on who you ask, you'll get a range of answers to this question. Certainly from a security industry context, it has been around for a while. And, I remember 20 years ago when working with the BSIA and their technical groups, we were looking at AI-based technologies, perimeter detection technology in the early 2000s. And we were writing documents, how to buy guides, to put some guardrails around the use in the context of what it could or couldn't do. And, that was with the Home Office and eyelids, if anyone remembers that project. And the reason for doing that is that there was such a wide range of responses to this technology in the context of its use. And the buyer was getting increasingly concerned about how capable it actually was. And I think over time, in security, the accuracy has evolved, and it's kind of gone beyond just providing inferences, and it's moved towards actually providing decisions. And that's new for security. And with that, there are a whole host of issues. And I agree with Mary's point about the amount of data that is now available. And if you combine that with the development of the general purpose technologies that have enabled processing of data much faster. The silicon now is designed for the purpose. You will have heard of your GPUs that are used for gaming. Those are now in security devices. Comms are much better and ever improving. And the decisions that AIs make, and I say AIs plural because there are a range of techniques at the heart, they're far more precise, and that's because neural networks, have been invented that weren't there previously. But one of the concerns that security has, and it's back to that point on data, which is that there's a vast amount of data being collected, and it's very useful and valuable to organisations. And within a security silo, it's managed for that purpose. But now we're seeing the use of data going beyond security. And what AI is very good at is actually finding patterns in data. So if you put two data sets together, it can probably very happily re-identify pseudonymized data, which means data that you think is safe is not identifying people. The AI will find the bits that actually allow you to do that. Now, you may want that in security. But if you're not using it for a security application, that opens up other considerations towards the purpose and consultation with people and so on, to make sure that you're not infringing on privacy and other rights. Other concerns for this industry, we've seen deepfakes getting really good. And those are a side effect of generative AI. So deepfakes were possible before ChatGPT came out, by the way. And that technology is also at the heart of creating synthetic data, which can make facial recognition models more accurate, because you can synthetically create a wider demographic. But the deepfake problem is one that hasn't quite hit this industry yet. And I do say that it's only a matter of time before someone is actually convicted on the basis of deepfake evidence.
Or released.
Or released, or yes, absolutely, or the alibi. And in society, you know, we've been seeing, or we haven't been seeing as consumers, if you're in tech, you know, but not everyone's in tech, that AI's crept in, you know, and it's in the algorithms, it's in social media. Your delivery from Amazon will arrive in a very timely manner because they deploy so many AI techniques in order to achieve that. And this leads to transparency considerations. Do you know if you're being exposed to it? So it's opening up the accuracy of the processing, the accessibility to data, the ability to combine data sets, and also to embed that in applications at the edge on mobile phones and also devices in the security industry. It's opening up a whole new debate, and it's kind of going at a pace. And I would suggest that's slightly ahead of us at the moment. So that's my position on it.
No, I totally agree. And in terms of deep fakes, obviously, I mean, I've come accustomed to, you know, scrolling through TikTok in the evening, for example, and seeing a fake Elon Musk telling me to buy his Bitcoin. You know, and those kind of scams, most people are used to seeing them on a daily basis. But also, as the whole of society is becoming more digitally aware, there's people that are being targeted. You know, for example, the elderly, they have to book their GP appointment online, are getting targeted by scams that might not be as digitally savvy. And when you have deep fakes coming into it, obviously at the moment, the majority of the time you can tell the difference, but some people might not be able to. So I think that's definitely going to become a greater concern as we go down. And like you said, the Amazon effect as well is creating a lot of difficulties in the shipping and logistics industry, because people are naturally expecting to have transparent data of what they've ordered online. They want to know that their I don't know, laptop, which port it's at, why it's there, where it's sourced, how it is ethically sourced, all these different data sets which previously wasn't available, and now it's become expected and is therefore affecting all those different industries as well. And Vidya as well, lastly, what is your perspective of the development of AI so far?
Well, it's how can I put it, excitement. At the same time, I suppose I should say cautious excitement, because of the pace at which this is evolving. I'm thinking about cybersecurity. We're always trying to catch up with the bad actors. The good actors are always trying to catch up, and I think it's somewhat similar. The innovators are going so fast. I don't want to use the word controller because I don't want to control innovation. You know, it's got to be a creative process, but a responsible innovation. You know, those who want responsible innovation are trying to catch up with the innovators. And obviously, being a democracy, there's a marketplace out there. Everybody wants to get on the bandwagon and sell their product. And people like ourselves, we want to say, look, you know, we don't want you to. Some of the MIT professor, I think I read somewhere that he wanted to pause. Now, realistically, you and I know that's not going to happen. And who's going to police that pause? That's not going to happen. So what we can do as the next best thing is to say, look, guys and girls, go and innovate, but let us be part of that innovation. Let us not. We don't want to hold you back, but we don't. I think somebody used that word transparency. You know, be transparent about what you're doing, and let us look at your system. Let us understand your system, so that we can, if you like, we can certify it to say, yes, we're happy that this product can be used as a trusted product in the marketplace. So for me, it's that race, trying to bridge that gap, narrow that gap between us and the innovators. I think it's a challenge. It's exciting, and there are, as we know, there are risks and opportunities. Risks are there because they're going too fast or very fast, and opportunities are there. We're trying to catch up. Say, look, guys, work with us. So which hopefully will create jobs in the marketplace for people to become trained on monitoring such systems to give that trust mark. So yes, I think I'm seeing it as a positive. There are negatives and positives to anything and everything in life, but if we can see it as a positive and help them to work with us in a transparent manner, I think it's only going to be a good thing. It'll be a force for good, us and them together.
I think it's the same with any new emerging technology. There's bound to be skepticism, and it's just about informing how we standardize it and create a form of best practice around it. And AI has been hailed as a transformative force, and like we said, it's already been met with skepticism, especially concerning security and public safety. And like you said, Vidya, as well, there's only so much that we can innovate in the good space when we're trying to be ethical about it, whereas a bad actor is innovating just as much, if not more so, because they don't have those restrictions around. So that's where one of the biggest challenges comes into play. But I wanted to pose a question to all of you on the panel, so I'll go around the room again in the same order, starting with you, Mary. But how do we strike the right balance between embracing AI's potential and safeguarding public interests? What are the biggest concerns?
The biggest concerns, I think, right now relate to, if I start with just my own garden as a phrase, to, if you will, what I can currently control inside of our own organization, and ensuring that our product development approach and our cybersecurity for our systems is as tightly managed as it can be. I am concerned about some of the deep fake issues that you've mentioned. I think that's a critically challenging aspect of this. The facial recognition, Pauline, that you mentioned, these are, as I think about, as we go forward and look to build systems, we're rolling out an application right now, a piece of hardware that's going to have facial recognition in it. And this, as we look forward and think about what could that lead to, what is my risk surface start to change and morph to when I start loading in AI, and how do I ensure that we're putting in place just the safeguards? So from a pure management of the product portfolio and the foundational platform itself, number one concern is ensuring, how do we safeguard ourselves and our platforms to ensure that we're doing all that we can to keep out, I'll say, the bad actors that are going to leverage AI that will potentially try to attack the system. So in some ways, our surface of attack has just increased simply because of AI. So it starts very much looking in-house. So that's very top of mind for us. I think, as I mentioned, the facial recognition, we really believe, and some of the surveying information that we received this last year indicates that more than 50% of security buyers out there are thinking about implementing facial recognition and biometrics, if you will, for security as it relates to access coming, in the next 2 to 3 years. This is, when you throw in AI on top of that, it's quite an interesting activity. Where does utilizing biometrics as a means to reinforce safety as it relates to access, but then how can that be manipulated through AI in order to potentially break down some of that security? So there's some real sort of front and center concerns that we have that are associated with this, and how it can be leveraged in a negative fashion towards us and towards our customers, and the way in which the application works. I think in a broader sense, though, I think the security industry, and I'm going to divide them, although they are together now, if you will. But if I were to divide the physical security from the cybersecurity world, and someone in that realm, if you will, of buying a physical security related product, I think there's an enormous risk that comes into play when you start playing with the deep fake activity. I think in particular, I think the deep fake component is going to be something that we have to be very careful with. But, it has been around forever, so it's not as if, it's a brand new thing, but it is more capable, I think, of being insinuated into our environment. So, I will get into the data, but I've already mentioned the data as well. Just ensuring that we are using that in the most effective way possible, leveraging AI practices in order to deliver something that's valuable, but also at the same time ensuring that we're not perhaps misappropriately using it. I don't think, if we're starting from it, we have control over it, but it's, I think that's part of where we're sitting. And the broader world, I think we've covered quite a bit, and I love your comment about the standards. I'm a big believer in standards as a means to help manage experience, manage safety, manage security, and also optimize experiences. And I think, to the extent that any kind of standards can be leveraged here to protect as well as innovate, I think would be great. It's a very difficult needle to thread, I know, but I'm a big believer in them. So I'd love to hear more about that. I think that's a super topic. Go ahead. I'm going to start talking here in a minute, so I'm going to put myself out.
So Vidya, then coming to you next, then have you got anything to add in terms of concerns?
Well, I did a bit of homework. And for me, it's black box AI. It's just to explain to those who are not familiar with that, is any AI system whose inputs and operations aren't visible to the user or another interested party. A black box, in a general case, is an impenetrable system. Black box AI models arrive at conclusions of decisions without providing any explanations as to how they were reached. So for me, no explanation, no. AI products need some scrutiny before going to market, as well as post-market phase through routine monitoring and surveillance, just like medical devices. It goes into the market, provided that it ticks all the boxes and it's certified by, in the UK, MHRA, and then it's monitored over time to see how it's performing in the marketplace. And similarly, for me, I want explanations, like I said before. And I think Mary was talking about standards, and standards can help with providing those explanations through testing, through rigorous testing of the product. And I'm sure we'll come to this later on with CE marking, UKCA marking, to give the public the trust that it has gone through a rigorous a number of phases before it's come into the marketplace, and then monitoring it afterwards to see, is it fit for purpose? Is it doing what it's meant to be doing, that it was marketed for? And it's all very well ticking the boxes, giving the certification, UKCA CE, but for whatever reason, it doesn't perform as it's meant to be, as found in the marketplace. Then we've got to be able to decommission it. So look, guys and girls, this is the way it was before, but for whatever reason, it's not performing the way it's meant to be. So we've got to have a facility or mechanism to withdraw it from the marketplace. So for me, it's again that transparency, accountability, explanation, and vigilance and market vigilance afterwards as well.
I think that's a great point, and also the raising up of black box AI as well. Obviously, one of the biggest controversies in AI is making sure that there is still human decision making in there, and human surveillance of whatever's happening with that AI and product. And AI in itself is an algorithm that learns and adapts to what it's fed. And that's where a lot of the difficulties with facial recognition comes in, is because when it comes to bias, is obviously whether it's conscious or unconscious bias. If you're being fed an algorithm, for example, in an access control setting where you have facial recognition in a building, or in an airport, and it might flag out somebody as a potential threat or a danger just because they have a birthmark on their face, for example, which it hasn't encountered before. So if you haven't got somebody monitoring that that AI or that algorithm, then you're gonna pose a lot of challenges. Pauline, coming to you next. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think really stressing the point around data, there are a couple of points I wanted to make. So it's a bit of a paradox in reality. So if you think about the uncontrolled collection and combining of data, which is happening all around us, every device we interact with, we are having some data collected, walk around town, walk around a campus facility. There are cameras, there are sensors all over the place, and doing that in an uncontrolled way, and then combining those data sources is a really serious concern for all of us as individuals. But equally, this is a paradox, the control, so as opposed to uncontrolled, the control collection and combining of data sources can bring a very serious improvement to public protection. So, those have to, there's a tension between these two areas, and what I see creates, let's say, the line between these two areas is effective governance. And at the moment, if you look at the highest level of governance, it's the law. The only law we have really in the Western world is GDPR. And following that, we've got standards that haven't necessarily been enacted for AI or put in, that are coming to market, but they're not quite there yet. And then what's good to do? So ethical practice based on what? So, ethics doesn't appear in the commercial world without some sort of structure which provides a list of what to do. Because we're commercial people, we're industrial people, and our whole world is driven by what do we do next, and especially security. And what I wanted to stress here quickly is that it's really important to think at a high level and have a governance framework in place. And it needs to be at the highest level of management within the organisation, depending on how it's structured. Might be senior management team, might be an oversight committee, probably the board. It needs to be on the risk register. And as an absolute minimum, the boards need to be looking at the best available framework for governance, and they can look to the OECD for their principles. But we're starting to see principles for the governance of AI appearing in the EU AI Act. It's in UK regulation, and a number of US stateside acts in progress, which is really good. Canada are implementing. So really the point is, well, there are 2 points here. If you do things in an uncontrolled way with no governance, it can lead to trouble and infringement of our rights. You do it in a controlled way, it can seriously protect us. So how do you do it in a controlled way? And the law, standards, de facto ways, and then good practice in terms of implementing principles. But the board needs to be part of this dialogue, and they need to be taking responsibility and be accountable for the effects of those AIs.
Thank you, Pauline. And I think that actually brings us perfectly onto the next section of our panel. So AI is nothing new, as we've established, but with the adoption of services like ChatGPT, etc., it's excelled considerably, as well as its use in all industries, both personal and professional. As with all emerging technologies, with untapped potential, compliance and legislation is something that must evolve over time. And we're never going to get it right the first time, sadly. But we've started to make considerable headway in this area with the new EU AI Act that Pauline, you just mentioned there, and that's coming to the forefront. So the EU AI Act has been a significant piece of legislation that is coming into fruition. And Pauline, this is a subject matter that you are extremely well versed in. But how should companies navigate the complex web of regulations to ensure compliance, while also reaping the benefits of AI innovation?
So should I answer that?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, so it depends where you are really in the world, but what we're finding is that the EU AI Act for the Western world is appearing, it's showing up as a bit of a gold standard, is a gold standard for AI regulation. I think China were in fact the first to implement, to actually legislate. But if we look at the West and what is in place, the Act is going to happen very shortly, and how companies can interact with this is get up to speed very quickly if you're not already up to speed in terms of what's in there. It's a complex instrument that regulates governance and risk management and for AI systems, and they're explained in quite a detailed way in the Act. The Act came about as a result of real world harms that were inflicted, and we quote the Dutch government issue. They resigned during the pandemic due to the misuse of an AI system within their child welfare system, which essentially discriminated against people with certain characteristics and automated that process for 5 years. So there's a lot of learning in there, and they corrected that, and this informed much of the EU AI Act with regard to biometric categorization and also profiling, putting prohibitions in place in certain use cases. But where do you start with this? It's a vast piece, currently over 500 pages and 600 amendments that are currently the negotiating position. It is very difficult to interact with the Act, so I would obviously suggest that companies talk to a specialised organisation, and we do this. And when I say this, it's essentially where to start. So what AI have you actually got in place? Are you using AI? Many organisations don't realise that they are. And in fact, in the security industry, many of them do not show up and declare that they are AI-based technologies because they didn't have to in reality. So that will change, because any developer of AI technology is going to have to declare their risk level. And that's linked to the use case. So it should get much easier for companies to make choices on the basis of a risk level that the actual developers and providers, as they're described, declare. And then a number of requirements are laid out, which include CE marking and also conformity assessments, but also risk assessments, impact assessments, an AI management system, risk management system needs to be in place. And we're great advocates of the new ISO IEC 42001. If you've not come across that, will be released at the end of this year. It sets out how to assess risk and govern AI systems. It's a nice body of work, new standard. And then in terms of how to monitor the AI, there need to be strong links. So it brings together the value chain so that the user and the developer and the provider are very closely associated in terms of how feedback is then dealt with. So with regard to bias, for example. And the final piece of this really is that there is another side piece. It's a directive which is coming out with the EU AI Act, which is the AI Liability Directive, which is most interesting. And I would suggest that developers, providers of AI-based security technology, in particular biometric-based, understand this adjacent piece, because it actually presents the position of a presumption of causation, which allows an individual to, as a start point, go to court with that presumption of causation being a non-compliant AI system that caused them harm. And that really wakes up the entire value chain in terms of allowing a route to be traced right the way back into the developer's environment. And how this is different from the current situation. The situation is that product is sold, it's product, and it's sold within a contract. And that contract is usually terms and conditions of sale, which states there's a limitation on the consequential action that can be taken. The liability is limited. So the EU AI Act breaks that down. So you can no longer sit behind the veil of limited liability in a contract, because the Act actually prevails. So it's something that is very important, must be looked at. And all in all, you know, it sounds complex, but actually once you've categorized your AI system and the buyer is then educated in terms of what it is they should ask for and what that provider should be providing them in terms of documentation, that has to be compliant in a certain way, detailed, describing the use cases. This will all knit together. It's just something new to learn. And that will all come to market sort of early next year. And high risk and prohibited systems will need to have taken action within 12 months, so early 25. So it's not long to get things in place. But the reason for this act is to protect fundamental rights, health and safety of individuals and the environment. So that the idea is that it doesn't stifle innovation. What it does is put guardrails around the most dangerous systems. And in fact, only about 20%, that's the number that's being bandied around, 20% of AI systems would sit in the high risk and prohibited categories, and security AIs tend to sit in those categories. But to your point, Mary, the biometric verification, that sits in a lower risk category because it's considered fully consented. But there are side effects. You might be collecting other data in the background. So there are other things to look at. So there's more than we've got time for, Rebecca, but hopefully that provides a little bit of insight into how to navigate. And I've mentioned this because it is setting the scene. And the boat has sailed on this act in that it's well on the way, and companies have to do it. It's going to be law in all member states.
No, thank you, Pauline. And Mary, coming to you, as Brivo is a cloud-based access control provider, how does the onus of responsibility on manufacturers, especially in the AI domain, impact their innovation strategies and product life cycles?
Well, I think, following on what Pauline just talked about, this is constant gathering of data in access control, right? It's a constant access event gathering in spaces that are utterly challenged in ensuring security. You think of just simply a hospital. The kinds of concerns that we have associated with the strength of the security inside of the individual assets that we place in buildings is absolutely got to be priority number one. And so the use of AI and the potential that it has is very much something that as we're constantly having to stay as much ahead as Vidya mentioned earlier. The bad actors, if you can, right? You're constantly trying to stay ahead, but we have to constantly be practicing the best possible methods to ensure that we've got the safety on these assets, on these edge devices, because that's what they are. These are edge devices that are connected wirelessly in many cases to a network. And so as we start to think about what is the network exposure that is capable of being infiltrated, if you will, by AI. Now, this is another attack method, if you will, that to some extent we're constantly having to think about the same thing. Every manufacturer's got to be thinking about this. By its very nature, cloud-based access control systems are very much just an opportunity for threat. So it's beyond simply saying our need to be mindful and on top of the best possible standards we can put in place. I would say, in addition to that, as an industry, keeping in mind, one of the things about access control is everyone's got a slightly different system. Everybody's got a slightly different thing, right? So my reader doesn't necessarily work the same way as another reader does. There is some standardization in there, but that's actually part of the challenge, if you will, is the industry itself needs to be thinking about what are we doing to, as a whole, ensure that we are managing these edge devices in the way that's possible. So, I mean, it's a critical question, and I think we're still figuring out exactly how to do this. Are we taking additional steps? We'll have to ensure that we're doing what we need to. I mean, I think to what Pauline was talking about, I want to make one comment related to the act. Here, as a global company, we're obviously having to think about it. It's just like when GDPR got rolled out, right? What do we need to do? Is it related to that? So as this act comes into place, we'll be going through the same thing. And what ends up happening is it does actually raise the level of our protection and the way in which we are managing our entire system. It only gets a little bit better because of that kind of those legislation. That legislation in and of itself is going to be, I agree, the gold standard. We're way behind here in the United States on anything associated with it. It's been talked about, but we have an election coming up. I'm sure you've heard about it. So in 2024, we're not going to have anything, I think, passed, and we still don't have anything at a national level that's anywhere close to GDPR. We have California's got some pretty onerous activities as it relates to privacy, but that's the closest I can point to. So, if you go beyond that, and then you think about if that's going to be what we have to manufacture to, that's actually going to help us, I think, globally. And so I think we'll leverage the benefit of that act simply by being a provider in Europe to all the states. So it's a critical time period, and I think that we've been utilizing neural networks as a part of our platform and our SaaS-based systems now for a number of years, looking for anomaly detection and various other types of solutions. But I think it's, this is just what is the additional action that can be taken through the leveraging of AI that we haven't anticipated yet. That's the thing, right? It's what can you not anticipate? I mean, we never would have thought our mobile device would have been, the means by which we do everything today when we launched it. And that was the majority of my career was in mobile. And it's an entirely different beast, if you will, now than what we first started thinking about it as. It was a phone. It was a phone. It's no longer that. So,
and nobody likes calling anyone anymore.
No, exactly. Voice minutes have gone down dramatically globally. So, I mean, it's quite true. So it's a thing. We just don't know what's going to happen. And that's always, part of the fun, I guess, in tech for sure.
No, definitely. I think you're right. I think the tech landscape has completely changed, and we've adapted alongside with that, and we've very much welcomed it. Like you said, I'm pretty sure that my wife doesn't go anywhere without her mobile phone, and probably doesn't even know where her bank card is. Just absolutely everything is just tap, and eventually we'll be, tapping into our office, buying things on our phone. Absolutely everything will be on, mobile credentials. It's an interesting world. So it's just, like Pauline said earlier, it's preparing and putting up the guardrails to ensure that we're kind of all aligned. And it's great to hear that although obviously standards differ depending on region, that actually as a provider for EU, for UK, as a lot of security manufacturers are, that it's raising a global standard and an international standards. And that's good, that's positive. So thank you, Mary. And Vidya, we come to you next. As well as a good governance implementer, certification and best practice is incredibly important. In your opinion, how critical is independent auditing of AI systems in ensuring public safety, and how does the UKCA and CE marking that you mentioned earlier play a role in this?
Well, all the good things that we've been talking about so far, it's got to be independently verified, so that that independent person or persons or team don't have a vested interest in the product other than for its safety to the public. And it's got to be rigorous, hasn't it? I believe that not only external independent assessment, but I believe there should be internal auditors. I know it's going to be a challenge for internal people to be to extricate themselves, if you will, of the product of the organization. But you need to have an internal auditing team as well, because this is a challenge. I'm thinking about a training, for example, to give people on the assessment of the robustness of neural networks. Now, yes, my second degree is in knowledge-based system. That was a number of years ago. Things have moved on, so we need to train up on new technologies, and it doesn't. How can I put it? Anyone who has an interest in wanting to learn the technology in order to be able to audit the technology for the benefit of the business and the people that it serves, need to be trained up on rigorous testing of this technology. I think I've said this before it has to go through those phases, just like in IT. It still happens, but it's very fast now. The testing phases, design, build, test, user acceptance testing, system testing, unit testing, before it gets delivered, sees the light of day. It may sound arduous. Oh my God, we need to get the product out the door next week. I know that's what I faced in my younger days, but I had to hold people back to say, look, this is going to pay back in dividends if you invested a bit more time and effort at the outset before you release it. And now the stakes are higher. Before, if the product crashed, they'll ring up support. Oh, this doesn't work. But now, if the product crashed or misbehaved, then we have serious consequences to the security of the people that it serves. So the stakes are extremely high now. So we have to take this extremely seriously and invest time and effort in training people to do not only internal auditing, but also external independent auditing and providing that certification. And when I talk to people, they say, "Oh, Vidya, it's just another tick box exercise, isn't it?" And my reaction to that is, yes, it was in the old days. I'm thinking about British Standards 5750. In the old days, I remember being part of a big organization where auditors used to come in. It was a tick box exercise, but they're the old days. Things have moved on now. Now we're looking for effectiveness, outcomes. What are the outcomes, desirable outcomes? Is the product meeting those desirable outcomes? I alluded to it earlier, monitoring afterwards as well. So it's not as if you've sold the product, great, we've got the big bucks coming into the organization. I think Pauline mentioned it with the EU AI Act. There were certain words that you mentioned. I can't remember now, but you said about that responsibility and accountability. The developers, the organization is responsible. Once it's out the door, you can't say, "Great, wonderful, done, job done, next." It'll come back and bite you if you don't do it properly in the first place. So yes, definitely certification, internal and external auditing, and in medicine we say, I worked with medical products. Do no harm. That's got to be the principle. That's the product. Do no harm. Does it comply with that simple principle?
Perfect. Thank you, Vidya. And Mary, I see your hand up. Is there something you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just want to add, we have ISO 27001, right? And I've been thinking about how is AI going to impact that, and where are we going to go? If ISO has been, for many years, the international security standard, what I'm anxious to see is what's going to change with that, and are we going to see another certification? I'm wondering. I'm certainly anticipating that, right? I'm anticipating an entire revision of that standard, given AI and the fact that there is some level of this already addressed in it, but I do think the ISO in and of itself is going to be impacted most definitely from this, and as a we have any number of standards that we look to be compliant with, and I think this compliance attitude by current good actors, if you will, because we have buyers that require us to have certifications, right? So we must be ISO 27001 compliant. We must have the certification. We must have in the United States SOC 2 and many different other things that we have to have almost at a state level. But globally, as I think about ISO 27001, I think that's going to be the thing that is going to be is really going to be addressed next. And I wonder how it's going to be. What's the next iteration of that going to look like as you think about the proliferation of, and in the context of the act in Europe as well? I think what's going to be that next threshold we're going to have to take, and we're very mindful of that because so many of our buyers have that as just the means, it's the benchmark. Okay, you got to pass that. It's table stakes. And so if I don't have that, where am I going to go? So what's the next iteration of that going to look like? I think that's actually what I'm hoping for at this point. In some respects, as a manufacturer and as a solution provider, is actually having that level of compliance be baked into something like that, that takes into consideration some of what is in the directive that Pauline mentioned, as well as then what we've already been doing. I think that's, in my mind, from a practical point of view, that's what I'm hoping for is something to that effect that incorporates as much as we can, be standardized on it, be able to be compliant, and kind of be able to move on and say, okay, we're doing all that we need to in order to meet this, at least this level of security standardization. And and ISO has changed many times, so we are now at 27001. It's kind of crazy. I remember when it was 2001. So but I think that's one of the things that gives me comfort, is that we do have compliance related standards that we can fit ourselves into in the industry that are going to provide both us as well as the buyer some level of confidence that there is addressing in a compliant way. I just think that's got to be something that occurs next is what I'm assuming.
Rebecca, if I can just quickly just to follow up with Mary and something Pauline said earlier about there's AI management system that's going to be published at the end of this year, so that might be a good place to start towards compliance. Having said that, I'm a big fan of, I think Pauline already knows this, I've posted it on LinkedIn, that ISO 37,000, it's the governance of organization. I mean, for me, when I want to, okay, call me sad, but, I'm in love with it. Because for me, that encompasses how an organization should be run. It talks about all the good things EU AI Act covers, the accountability, the leadership, the oversight. We talked about oversight, the strategy, the purpose. What's the purpose of the product? Is it delivering? The risk governance. I mean, that's the heart and soul of what we're talking about. Risk governance. It's all there in the standard. So yes, we're going to have the AI management system standard coming at the end of this year. But for me, yes, I'll have that when I do my audits, but I'll also have this. This can't be certified towards because this is guidance. It's not a requirement, but I might even put my hand up to our notified body here to say, can we start a committee on making this a certifiable standard in terms of requirements? It's at the moment is guidance. So for me, it's this standard as well as the new standard that's coming at the end of this year.
42,001. Sorry, jumping in, 42,001. And can I just caveat here that in the UK, the company is run in accordance with the Companies Act, and directors look to that first and foremost. So we, alongside 37,000 is a very good standard. We need to see a change to Section 172 of the Companies Act, which to consider the wider stakeholder, because currently the Act is written, although shareholder is not explicitly mentioned, the Act is leaning towards what the shareholders want, which can result in directors delivering for them and not for the stakeholders, and necessarily considering all the impacts on stakeholders.
Definitely. So that needs a change in the law, isn't it?
Companies Act needs to change. Yes. Yeah. Section 172, directors' duties and responsibilities.
Okay. So Pauline, you and I will raise it with the government.
It's already been raised multiple times.
Oh, great.
And there's a campaign, the Better Business Act, if you want to go and look that up, which is campaigning for this. And we would hope to see a change at some point, but the government is busy at the moment on other things. So it keeps getting pushed down the list. So it's down to the company directors to adopt an approach which considers the ethical. They're wrapped up in the word ethical, which is a massive subject, and I think a better word is probably responsible approach.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's very fair.
Yeah.
And just a question for the whole panel as well. And we'll go around the room as well. So Mary, I'll probably start back with you. But what advice would you offer to organisations to ensure that they balance the beneficial use of technology with the constraints of governance and regulations?
Well, I can, from our point of view and the way I'm thinking about this is that I still love the amount of innovation that can be driven from this. And by taking a responsible manner, if you will, thinking of, at the same time as you think of the innovation, what is the possible downside effects of that? But for me right now, I'm going to make an assumption, right, that as a solution provider, people that are looking to implement security-related systems, I think this is the time for innovation. I think this is very much the time to think about how can you improve, the experience that you're providing. What is the value that you have? There's so much, in our case, there's so much data that we have the opportunity to mine and potentially provide greater security while providing greater well-being, while providing an environment that is, is going to deliver on the kinds of access that we need to have. And I think to me, this is a time for innovation, because I think regulations always kind of trail, right? They come afterwards. They come after something's out of the genie's always out of the bottle by the time regulation comes into play. And we're kind of there right now. And excuse me, I think through the opportunity that something like ChatGPT has made AI something that is now so completely not understood, but aware of, right? It's this, we're aware of it as individuals outside of our work lives, if you will. And I think the opportunity for anyone in this industry right now is to say, okay, are we really using it to the maximum opportunity and effect? So I think it's innovation right now. I'd stick with that. I think if you've been behaving and managing and compliant to as many standards that you have to, this is going to become second nature. You have to think about privacy. You have to think about the security of it. For me, this is all about making sure that we have the opportunity to innovate as much as possible. So I think that's job one right now. Let's take advantage of the tools. They're cheaper. They're easier. Everybody can use them. It's not as if the developer in the corner has the only opportunity to really think about what it can be used for right now. It is truly anybody in an organization that can help support it. So I think that's where I'm right now, is just go after the innovation, take advantage of it. There's going to be risk no matter what. So, no matter what you do. So let's take advantage of what we've got.
Wise words. Thank you, Mary. And Vidya, coming to you next.
Yes, it's really just following on with same as Mary. Really, for me, is the responsible innovation. I think I mentioned it right at the outset. We don't want to hold them back. We don't want to hold the innovators back. But all we're saying is, guys and girls, work with us. There should be a, if you like, in an organization, a governance professional, if you like, who will work with the innovators hand in hand, with that in mind, with the safety of the end product in mind, people, processes, technology in that order. So with that in mind, it's we can get the balance right if we involve the governance professionals within the innovation team. Like Mary said, anybody can innovate in the organization now. So that's a positive. That's a positive. But make sure the governance professionals are there working hand in hand with them.
Thank you, Vidya. And Pauline, coming to you.
Yeah, just quickly, because I think Vidya and Mary have really covered this point. I don't want to just repeat things, but in terms of how to strike a balance, well, being really, really clear about the purpose of the system, what problem is it solving? And this isn't an AI question. This is one which needs to go to all the functions of a business if the AI is being implemented within a business, and to truly understand what's the problem, and what is the AI actually doing, and if it's doing something that leads to de-skilling or displacement to jobs, how is that addressed and mitigated? And there are considerations around that, but equally what jobs are being created. We're seeing the emergence of the prompt engineer now, which if you're in that area, that role is commanding very high salaries because there are actually none of them out there. But this is a skill, this is a job that manages the large language model and creates optimal inputs and prompts to achieve the best possible outputs on the basis of technical and contextual knowledge of the subject matter itself. So you can see it's somebody with a very broad skill set in terms of both art and science, but the purpose is really the key. Innovation for the sake of it, what problem is it solving? Well, if it's not solving a problem, it's not going to be innovation, because it'll fail pretty quickly. So that would be my add-on to this. And I think very good points made about standards by Vidya and Mary all the way through this, and just to the 27001, how that could extend, maybe to look at AI generated data. So to bring that into the net of categorization.
Definitely. And lastly, for our last question, I would like to explore the panel's vision for the next big breakthrough in AI as it relates to the security industry and what the future looks like. Obviously, we've discussed a lot of the guardrails and a lot of the innovations that could come, but what do you think the future is? Mary, perhaps you'd like to go first. Sorry, you're always in the first seat.
That's okay. I'm sitting here thinking, if I have a really good answer for this, I should pursue that and get another job, because let's face it, this is very much the the millions and millions of dollar question. I think I have to say, I look at another industry a little bit for some guidance here. If you think about the advertising industry and the way that they have used data and the way in which they have so surrounded us as consumers, excuse me, to ensure that we are getting more than we want delivered to us, ads on things that we may have mentioned in the last day, that we have talked about. Think about the listening that occurs through inanimate devices that's listening to us all the time. When I think about the way in which those actions have influenced us as consumers, as human beings, I personally think that where we are now, that to your point, Pauline, the large language model prompting and the problem that it can solve, I see frankly an environment in security where hopefully we're not so. I think about a large enterprise. How much is that? Is this security? If you will, that the wall. If you think about oh gosh, I'm totally losing my word here. An operation center, a security operation center, and the kinds of work that needs to be done there, and the kinds of monitoring that needs to be done based on all different kinds of threats. My hope would be that AI makes that kind of an environment much more about predictive utilization of data and being able to take some of we've been using significant amounts of data in other industries that have given a very predictive model for all kinds of behavior. What I'm hoping for here is that we see AI get into where a security person that's responsible for security inside of an organization, I think is in a situation where they have a great deal of actionable and proposed actions that need to be taken, as opposed to reactive and passive. That's my hope, is we're going more towards a benefit that both protects the company itself, that is protecting the users, protecting the employees, that it's driving towards a much more effective environment, if you will. That would be my hope for the future in the way in which AI can be utilized. It's much less passive and reactive, much more predicted and potentially automated, to the extent that is an appropriate action. That's my hope of where we go here. And I look at the way advertising is looking at AI right now. They're just seeing just a vast opportunity to create their models in such a way that they're much more predictive. And we can take that kind of thought process, I think, in security and use it very similarly, and use it in a way that's going to benefit and not cause more harm, but to do a better job than perhaps what we're doing today. More effective, more automated, more proactive, more predictable, or predictive, if you will, actions. That's where I'd like to see it go, I think.
I think you raised a couple of points there that actually we haven't managed to touch on so much today. AI and advertising, data has almost become a currency for the public. We love the fact that we turn on our TV and we have the top recommended shows for us to watch, and adverts popping up. And we go, oh, I knew I needed a new mop. And it's already suggesting me the brand new flash mob. And we love that as a society. And it's a positive. It's a negative in some things, get a little annoying sometimes, naturally. When Spotify starts suggesting certain genres of music that I don't perhaps listen to, but I've mentioned in the past couple of days. And like you said, it's not just advertising, it's even marketing. We've been using AI and video analytics to predict footfall in shops, for example, for a while now. So it's seeing the positive light and that predictive nature, and I think that's a very interesting point actually that you've raised there, so thank you. And Pauline, coming to you next.
Yes, certainly. So the vision. So we need physical objects to deliver data to us. Without those, data is nothing, and without power, there's not a lot you can do either. So thinking about a physical object, what I'd like to see is smaller, lighter, more robust wearable technology for specifically for frontline operators. So it's just kind of following on from Mary's point actually a little bit, in that how do you deliver that data to the frontline operators? And there's a problem with that currently, and gathering data from the field, there's a problem with that currently, and the wearable hasn't solved that problem yet, but it will soon, as we see you know, Meta glasses, Apple goggles, and they're providing, or could provide, or an enhanced version of that, providing real-time situational awareness, which could be augmented reality, overlays, audible, you know, instructions that may be automated based on the context of the situation, and a visual overlay. And to achieve that, obviously, miniaturization, battery technology has to improve. Processing power is improving, but heat is a problem, and we need sustainable batteries. So a few things need to happen here, but I don't think it's going to be long before we see augmented frontline people. And taking that augmentation concept a little step further, I see the development of technology, which is already coming out at the end of the day, that it will help people who can't do things like unimpaired people can do. So we'll see the augmented person at some point, who is wearing the Google glasses, and that is giving a continual narrative about everything that is around them. And essentially that's what they want the front line to be doing. But often they are blind in that they are blind to the situation that is right ahead of them, and being dependent on radio technology currently can be an issue. So there's the mobile phone that can be lost, easily separated. So, you know, how do you deal with that? Well, body-worn cameras, they're bulky and difficult and so on. So something that's a bit more integral to the person.
Well, we need to take a leaf out of Tom Cruise's book, Mission Impossible. Get the glasses, get all the instant data analytics, you know, the comms, the crit comms in the tooth, all those kind of things. I definitely think, and we are already seeing, like you said, we're already seeing that type of technology. It's just seeing where and how that will adapt and go forward. And lastly, Vidya, what was your input?
Yes, yes, I was listening carefully, and I think for me, we've got to be able to. I mean, the metaverse. You know, there was a big, hype going on about metaverse, and in the context of AI and security, do no harm principle to the people that we sell the products for. For me, I want to be able to see. I want to be able to see the what if scenarios. You know, this product's going to go out there. You know, what if this goes wrong? What kind of an impact analysis? What kind of an impact could it have? Now, if we can, rather than read about it, if we can actually see it on the screen, if you like, then it'll make our production processes more robust. Oh, we don't want to go that way. We want to go this way because that could have a negative impact, and so on. So maybe science fiction, but I mean, you know, Star Trek, 50 years ago, it's come true now. So, that's what I'd like to see, to be able to not just read, to be able to see things in action. Tom Cruise, seeing things in action, so that we can make informed decisions as to how and where our products, where we want them to go to, and what kind of, what kind of impact it could have. Once it's out there in the marketplace, to be able to analyze all that in a visual way rather than
definitely
written way.
Definitely, and I think we're seeing the heightened importance of real-time data and analysis come into the forefront of a lot of industries. That's definitely going to not be something that is shied away from in security. It's integral in security, not just prevention, but proactive measures. So thank you, everyone. Unfortunately, that is all we have time for today. But I would like to extend my gratitude to our panelists for their insightful discussions. As we continue to venture into the AI augmented future, it's clear and thoughtful collaboration, rigorous governance, and ethical considerations that are paramount, as we've analysed here. So let's continue this dialogue and work collectively to ensure that a safe and beneficial evolution of AI in our industry. So thank you, everyone. Much appreciated your time.
Thank you.
A pleasure. Thank you.